All right, so we're back for another deep dive. And today we're looking into the case of Brooklyn rapper Sheff G.
Yeah.
Initially there were all these headlines about this potential 20-year prison sentence he was facing.
Right.
But ultimately that's not what happened at all.
Right.
He ended up with 5 years. So
yeah.
Obviously a huge difference there. So we're going to kind of break down the whole case today.
Absolutely. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. So to start, the rapper's real name is Michael Williams.
Yeah, Michael Williams.
And he pled guilty to attempted murder.
That's right.
And so this 5-year prison sentence comes from that guilty plea.
Right.
And in addition to the 5 years in prison, he also has 5 years of supervised release after he's out.
Yes. So that's a significant amount of time to be under supervision after he serves his sentence.
Right. So this sentencing all happened pretty recently on Wednesday, March 26th of this year, 2025.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so 5 years is still a pretty serious sentence.
Of course.
What was the district attorney trying to say with this sentence?
Well, Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez released a statement basically saying that, look, fame doesn't mean you're above the law. You know, they allege that Sheff G used his platform to encourage violence.
Right.
And that impacted the community. Obviously, they were probably hoping for a longer sentence, but they're satisfied that he's being held accountable for his actions.
Right. So it seems like they're really emphasizing cracking down on gang activity and making sure that gang members face consequences for their actions.
Absolutely. And this case is kind of a part of a bigger picture, right?
Totally. So Sheff G is allegedly a member of the Eight-Tray Crips.
That's what's been reported, yeah.
And the sentencing is actually connected to this huge case back in 2023.
Yeah.
It was a 140-count indictment.
Wow, 140 counts.
I know, a lot, right?
It's massive.
32 people were charged as part of that.
Including another rapper, Sleepy Hallow.
Right, so that just gives you a sense of the scope of this whole thing.
Yeah, it suggests a really widespread network of alleged criminal activity.
Right.
Yeah.
So within all of that, what exactly were the charges against Sheff G?
So the main charge against him, this attempted murder charge, stems from a shooting in 2020.
Right.
Where one person was killed and 5 others were injured. But it goes deeper than that.
Right.
The prosecution claims that he wasn't just present at the shooting, but that he was involved in plotting it.
Wow.
And then afterward, they allege that he and some others actually celebrated the shooting by having a steak dinner in Manhattan.
Oh, wow. A steak dinner celebration.
Yeah.
That's a pretty disturbing detail.
It is. It speaks to a certain level of callousness.
Yeah, it's chilling for sure.
And it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
The prosecution also accuses him of using his earnings from his music career to finance gang activity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, allegedly providing money and even expensive jewelry to people who carried out violent acts.
Wow. So they're putting this picture of him using his success to promote and support criminal activity.
Exactly. It's a pretty damning narrative.
So it's not just about him being at the scene. It's about him allegedly orchestrating things and providing the financial backing for these violent acts.
Right.
And before we get to the sentencing, there was also his arrest, and then he was released on bail.
Oh, yeah. That was a whole saga in itself.
I remember seeing those headlines. It was a pretty big deal. So remind me what happened there.
So he was initially arrested back in May of 2023.
Okay.
And then after almost a year in custody, he was released on bail in April of last year.
Oh.
And the details of that release were very public.
They're very public. Yeah, what happened?
Well, he posted about it on Instagram.
Okay.
And he really emphasized how much money was involved. You know, a $10 million bond.
Wow.
Which included a $1.5 million cash bail that they say was paid the same day he was released.
Okay.
And in the Instagram post, he uses the phrase winner circle.
Right.
And it just had this feeling of, you know, triumph. Like he had overcome this massive obstacle and was back in control in New York City.
Winner's circle. That's a pretty interesting detail.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely projects this image of victory, despite the fact that these serious legal charges were still hanging over his head.
Right. And on top of all that, there was also this political angle to the whole story.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He and Sleepy Hallow made a very public political endorsement.
Yeah. So both of them came out and endorsed Donald Trump at a campaign rally in New York while he was out on bail.
Yeah, which is interesting because it kind of raises questions about the possible connection between his legal situation and his political affiliation.
Right. I mean, the timing is definitely kind of suspicious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People were wondering if maybe he was hoping that the endorsement might somehow lead to leniency in his case.
Right. I mean, you can't help but wonder if there was some kind of motivation there.
Yeah, I mean, it's natural to think that maybe he was hoping it would influence the outcome of his case.
So now that he's been sentenced, do we know if he's going to pursue a pardon?
You know, as of right now, it's unclear if he and his lawyers plan on doing that. It's definitely something that could happen, but we don't have any concrete information to suggest that that's the plan.
All right, so let's kind of sum up everything we've talked about today. So Sheff G was facing a potential 20-year sentence,
Right.
but he ended up getting 5 years for attempted murder and 5 years of supervised release after that.
That's right.
And the DA was really clear that they're taking gang violence seriously,
Absolutely.
and they're going to hold people accountable no matter how famous they are.
Right. And this case really involved some serious accusations,
Yeah.
planning a violent crime and allegedly celebrating afterward and using his money to fund gang activity.
And then we had that whole thing with his bail and the Instagram post and then the political endorsement.
Yeah, it just adds another layer of complexity to everything.
Exactly. So this case really shows how complicated things can get when you have someone who's famous and involved in criminal activity.
Absolutely. And it raises questions about the justice system and the role of public figures in politics and all these things.
Totally.
Yeah.
So for those of you listening, what do you think about all of this?
Yeah, it's a lot to consider.
Does it make you wonder about what happens when public figures endorse political candidates while facing serious charges?
Right. And what about the possibility of a pardon?
Yeah. Is that something that could actually happen in this case?
It's definitely worth thinking about.
Just goes to show you that there's always more to the story than what you see on the surface.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.